The school bathroom, a place you never think twice about. The dull gleam of tiled floors, the low, incessant hum of fluorescent lights, the predictable scent of disinfectant. Just a quick, mundane stop in your day, a fleeting moment of private reprieve. Empty stalls. But what if, in that supposed sanctuary, in that utterly unremarkable space, something chilling waits? A faint, whispered giggle from deep within an empty stall, distorted and sinister. An impossible reflection staring back at you from the mirror, showing something grotesque that simply wasn't there a second ago. A terrifying, rhythmic scratch emerging from the very walls, growing closer, more insistent. Tonight, we dare to uncover 3 bone-chilling true horrors from the last place you'd ever expect to find a nightmare. After hearing these accounts, you might never use a public restroom alone again. Our first chilling account comes from Emily, a shy, introverted high school student in her sophomore year, a quiet soul navigating the often overwhelming social currents of adolescence. She often sought refuge from the bustling, sometimes suffocating chaos of the school hallways during the frenetic lunch breaks. The girls' bathroom on the 3rd floor, conveniently located at the very end of a long, often deserted, dimly lit corridor that rarely saw foot traffic, became her personal sanctuary. It was a haven of quiet solitude, a brief, precious escape from the incessant social pressures, the loud chatter, and the pervasive anxieties of her teenage years, a place where she could simply breathe, where the world outside briefly ceased to intrude. One overcast Tuesday afternoon, the kind of dreary day that seemed to drain all color and vibrancy from the world outside, casting everything in shades of muted, melancholic gray, Emily headed directly to her usual quiet haven. The hallways were already deserted, eerily silent, echoing only with the distant, muffled chatter and clatter from the crowded cafeteria far below, a low, comforting drone that underscored her isolation. She pushed open the heavy wooden door to the bathroom, its familiar squeak, a mundane sound that usually offered a small measure of comfort, a sign of predictable normalcy. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered erratically, sputtering with a low, oppressive hum, casting long, dancing, grotesque shadows that writhed across the tiled floor and up the walls, giving the ordinary space an unsettling, almost alive quality. The air inside was cold and stale, heavy with the cloying scent of industrial cleaner, mixed with the faint, metallic tang of old, unused pipes and stagnant water, a smell that clung to her clothes. There were 4 stalls in the row, gleaming dully under the unsteady light. 3 of them had their doors innocently ajar, revealing empty commodes within, their porcelain gleaming faintly. The 4th, the one at the very end, her usual preferred stall, had its door firmly, uncompromisingly shut, its worn metal latch clearly engaged, a small, stubborn barrier. A prickle of annoyance, rather than immediate fear, was her initial mundane reaction. Someone else was in her spot, disrupting her routine, invading her quiet space. She sighed, a small huff of irritation, prepared to wait patiently, perhaps even turn around and find another, less secluded bathroom on a different floor if it meant preserving her solitude. She approached a closed stall door, her footsteps echoing softly in the quiet space, the worn metal of its lock glinting dully in the erratic light, catching her eye. She could just see a sliver of profound darkness beneath the door, a deeper black than the floor itself, a void, but unsettlingly, no feet were visible. Odd. Most people, Even sitting, would have their feet, or at least the tips of their shoes, visible beneath the gap. She waited, listening intently, her ears straining over the low hum of the lights, the only sound filling the silence. Complete, absolute stillness. No rustling of clothing, no sounds of movement, no discreet cough, no flush of a toilet. Nothing. A silence that felt too heavy, too profound, too unnaturally complete. Curiosity, a slow, insidious creep, began to override her polite deference, burrowing into her mind. It felt wrong. The utter stillness, the unnatural silence from within the supposedly occupied stall sent a shiver down her spine. She gently, hesitantly, tapped on the door with her knuckles, the sound surprisingly loud in the quiet room. "Hello? Anyone in there?" she called out, her voice a little too loud, a little too uncertain. No response. The profound silence remained unbroken, impenetrable. She tapped again, a little louder, the sound echoing sharply in the confined space, a desperate plea for acknowledgement. "Excuse me. I just wanted to know if anyone's in here." Still nothing. A cold, creeping unease began to settle in her stomach, a knot of premonition tightening with every unanswered second. It felt undeniably occupied, yet eerily, impossibly empty. She tried the handle. It was locked, firmly, the metal cold and unyielding beneath her fingers, refusing to budge. But if no one was in there, if it was truly empty, why was it locked? And why no answer, no acknowledgement of her presence, not even a grunt or a sigh? Her mind began to race, frantically conjuring mundane, rational explanations, desperate to dispel the growing dread. Maybe the lock was broken, stuck in the engaged position, a faulty mechanism. Perhaps someone was playing a childish prank, hiding silently, trying to scare her. Or maybe a forgotten backpack or coat was hanging on the hook, making it seem occupied from below. Yet, the air around that particular stall seemed to grow heavier, colder, permeated by a chilling aura that bit into her skin, raising goosebumps on her arms. She felt a distinct, almost palpable sense of a malicious presence behind that closed door, a weight of unseen, malevolent eyes watching her from the void. Driven by a desperate need to confirm her suspicions, or more desperately, to dispel her growing, suffocating dread, she peered over the top of the stall, standing on tiptoes, stretching her neck, straining to see inside. The fluorescent light above flickered violently again, a harsh, sudden stutter, momentarily plunging the entire bathroom into near absolute darkness before sputtering back to life with a harsh buzz. In that brief, terrifying flicker, that fleeting moment of distorted vision, a horrifying glimpse, she saw it. Nothing. The stall was empty. Completely, utterly, undeniably empty. No one there. Not even a backpack. No forgotten coat. No discarded items. Just the gleaming white of the commode, pristine and unoccupied. A silent, stark monument to the impossible. Emily stumbled back, a choked gasp escaping her lips, a sound of raw, unadulterated horror that caught in her throat. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage, beating desperately, trying to escape its confines. If the stall was empty, how was it locked? And why had she felt that undeniable, oppressive presence, that chilling gaze? Her mind screamed, a wordless, primal scream that reverberated through her skull, shaking her very being. "Get out! Now! Run!" She spun around, a whirlwind of panic, her hand outstretched, reaching desperately, blindly, for the heavy bathroom door, the solid wood a promise of escape, of safety. but just as her fingers brushed the cold metal of the handle, a sound so faint she almost missed it assaulted her ears. A faint, almost imperceptible scrape. It came from the locked stall. A slow, deliberate, drawn-out sound, like something heavy and unnatural being dragged across the tiled floor, leaving a phantom mark, a disturbing whisper on the silence. Her blood ran cold, turning to ice in her veins, freezing her in place. She froze, her hands suspended in midair, unable to move, unable to break the horrifying spell, unable to tear her gaze from the source of the terrifying sound, a prisoner to her own fear. Then, a new sound, chilling and utterly impossible, emerged from the profound, oppressive silence. A low, guttural giggle. It was muffled, as if coming from deep inside the empty stall or from something tiny and hidden, something not quite human. A child's giggle, undeniably so, the innocent sound twisted and corrupted, but horribly distorted, slow, elongated, and filled with a sinister, mocking glee, a malevolent joy that turned her stomach, threatening to make her retch, to vomit from sheer terror. It was coming from the empty, locked stall. The empty, locked stall. Emily's eyes darted frantically between the closed stall door, a symbol of her imminent doom, a barrier between her and an unspeakable horror, and the exit, her only hope of salvation. She could hear her own frantic breathing, ragged and loud in the oppressive silence of the bathroom, amplifying her terror to an unbearable degree. She tried desperately to make sense of it, to rationalize the impossible, to find a logical explanation for the absurdity, but her mind reeled, unable to comprehend the paradox. An empty stall, locked, producing a horrifying, distorted giggle, accompanied by a chilling, scraping sound. It was impossible, yet it was happening. It was undeniably real, a nightmare made flesh. Suddenly, with a jarring, deafening clang, a metallic shriek that pierced her eardrums, the metal door of the locked stall slammed against the wall as if kicked open from the inside with immense, unseen, supernatural force. The sound reverberated through the bathroom, shattering the silence, sending shockwaves through Emily's entire body, vibrating through her bones. Emily screamed, a raw, primal sound that tore from her throat, a pure shriek of terror and despair. She didn't wait to see anything. She didn't look inside the now open, empty stall. She didn't want to know. She didn't want to glimpse the unspeakable horror that had just revealed its presence. She spun on her heel and ran, scrambling wildly out of the bathroom, tearing down the long, deserted corridor, her feet slapping frantically on the linoleum, a desperate rhythm of escape, not daring to look back, not caring if she crashed into anyone, if she stumbled and fell. She didn't stop running until she burst into the crowded, noisy cafeteria. The sudden rush of voices and bodies, a jarring, welcome contrast to the silent, suffocating horror she had just escaped. She was panting, hyperventilating, her body shaking uncontrollably, trembling with residual fear, tears streaming down her face, leaving cold trails on her skin. She tried desperately to explain what happened, her words incoherent, jumbled, lost in her terror and the general din of the cafeteria. No one believed her. They exchanged skeptical glances, thinking she was having a panic attack, or perhaps just playing a dramatic prank to get attention, a common teenage ploy. Emily never went back to that bathroom. The very thought of it sent shivers down her spine, a deep, pervasive cold. She avoided the third floor entirely, taking circuitous routes to get to her classes, adding precious minutes to her day, anything to avoid that corridor. She still has nightmares about that empty, locked stall, the horrifying, distorted giggle, and the violent, impossible clang of the door. She wonders, obsessively, with a cold knot in her stomach that never truly dissipates. What was in that stall? A trapped spirit? A malevolent ghost? Something demonic? A sinister entity from beyond? And why did it lock itself in, only to reveal its presence through sound, a horrifying auditory assault? What would have happened if she had looked inside when the door burst open? If she had caught a horrifying glimpse of its true form, its unspeakable visage? The questions haunt her, a chilling whisper every time she passes a deserted bathroom, a constant nagging reminder that some places, seemingly mundane and safe, hold unspeakable horrors within their silent, echoing walls, waiting for an unsuspecting soul. The terror of an unseen entity lurking within a locked stall, a hidden horror that reveals itself through impossible, chilling sounds, is a thought that preys on our deepest anxieties, our fears of confinement and the unknown. But what if the horror isn't confined to a single stall, a specific hidden space, or even to sounds alone? What if the bathroom itself becomes a stage for a terrifying visual, a fleeting, impossible glimpse that shatters your sense of reality, twisting your own reflection into a portal for profound, undeniable dread, showing you something that fundamentally should not be, a grotesque distortion of the familiar? Our second, deeply unsettling narrative comes from Marcus, a pragmatic and skeptical high school senior, a young man who grounded himself in logic and reason. He was widely known among his friends and teachers for his calm demeanor, his unwavering logical reasoning, and his steadfast scientific outlook. He never believed in ghost stories or urban legends, dismissing them as childish fantasies. He needed tangible, verifiable proof, a rational explanation for everything he encountered. The boys' bathroom on the ground floor, a large, well-used, and typically bustling space throughout the school day, was a familiar, utterly unremarkable part of his daily routine, a neutral zone in the school's sprawling layout. One late Friday afternoon, after school hours had officially ended and the last bell had rung, its final echo dying in the now empty halls, Marcus was one of the last students left on campus, diligently finishing a complex, time-consuming coding project in the empty computer lab. The hum of the servers was his only companion. He decided to use the bathroom before heading home, a quick, necessary stop before his bicycle ride across town. The hallway outside was eerily quiet, the profound, almost oppressive silence of a deserted school after classes had emptied its vibrant, chaotic energy, making his own footsteps echo unnervingly loud, a lone heartbeat in the vastness. He pushed open the heavy bathroom door, its familiar groan echoing in the stillness, a sound that seemed to stretch into the quiet. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly, a subtle stutter casting the large space in a harsh, almost clinical glare that highlighted every gleaming white tile and every faded stain on the floor, giving the room an almost sterile, yet subtly unsettling appearance. The air inside was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of stale water and the ubiquitous school disinfectant. There was no one else there, just him, utterly, completely alone. He walked to the row of sinks, the cold porcelain gleaming starkly under the harsh lights, splashed some cold water on his face. the sudden chill a welcome wake-up call designed to clear his tired mind. Then he looked up into the large, rectangular mirror above the sinks. The mirror stretched across the entire wall, a vast, seamless, reflective surface, perfectly mirroring the row of stalls behind him, the tiled floor, and the distant entrance door. He saw his own reflection, tired but undistorted, his face framed by his dark hair and the familiar sight of the empty stalls behind him, their doors either innocently ajar or securely closed. But then, as he reached for a paper towel from the dispenser, a faint, almost imperceptible flicker caught his attention in his peripheral vision. It was a mere ripple in the mirrored surface, a fleeting distortion. In the mirror, directly behind his own reflection, in the reflection of the empty space between the stalls, a figure, a dark, indistinct shape, standing perfectly still, seemingly hovering, defying gravity. He blinked, shaking his head slightly, a reflexive dismissal. Just a trick of the light, he told himself, or perhaps a shadow from his own movement, a momentary distortion of his tired eyes, playing cruel tricks. He focused his gaze intently on the exact spot where he thought he saw it. Nothing. The reflection was perfectly clear, pristine, showing only the empty stalls, the gleaming tiles. He scoffed at his own jumpiness, a small, nervous laugh escaping his lips, a sound that felt hollow and forced in the silence. His ingrained skepticism was warring fiercely with a sudden, illogical, yet undeniable unease. He dried his hands methodically, taking his time, then paused, his eyes still instinctively, compellingly drawn back to the mirror, a morbid fascination taking a firm hold over his rational mind. He subtly, cautiously scanned the reflection of the stalls behind him, trying to catch whatever it was that had flickered, that had disturbed his perfectly logical world, that had presented an anomaly. And there it was, again, clearer this time, undeniably there. In the reflection of the third stall from the left, a pale, unnaturally thin hand. It was reaching out from inside the stall, grasping the cold metal door handle, its fingers long and bony, almost skeletal, stretched and unnatural, its knuckles prominent. Marcus froze, his entire body locking up in an instant, a sudden, complete paralysis that seized every muscle. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm that echoed deafeningly in his ears. He slowly, agonizingly slowly, turned his head, straining his eyes, every fiber of his being resisting, trying to look at the actual third stall directly behind him, desperate to confirm what he was seeing, or even more desperately, to disprove it. It was empty. The door was slightly ajar, just as it had been, revealing nothing but the gleaming white commode within, utterly devoid of any presence. There was no hand, no figure, nothing. His blood ran cold, turning to ice in his veins, a profound, bone-deep chill that permeated his entire body, stealing his warmth. He turned back to the mirror, his gaze fixed, desperate for sanity, for a return to normalcy. The hand was still there in the reflection, clutching the handle, undeniably present in the mirrored world. It was pale, almost translucent, with long, thin, unnerving fingers. It was undeniably there, an impossible reality staring back at him from the glass, defying all natural law. He looked back at the actual stall. Empty. He looked back at the mirror. The hand. It was a terrifying, undeniable paradox, a breach in the very fabric of reality that his logical, scientific mind simply could not reconcile. Panic began to rise, a cold, suffocating wave that washed over him, stealing his breath, constricting his lungs. He felt the hair on his arms and the back of his neck stand on end, a primal, animalistic response to profound, immediate danger. He was alone in the bathroom, and something was in the mirror, something that wasn't in reality, something that shouldn't exist. He couldn't reconcile it. His rational mind screamed for an explanation, for a logical loophole, for any way to understand, but there was none. He tried desperately to force himself to move, to turn and run, to flee this impossible horror, but his feet felt glued to the floor, heavy and unresponsive, as if weighed down by an unseen force. His gaze was locked on the terrifying reflection, hypnotized by the impossible, unable to tear his eyes away. He watched, horrified, utterly mesmerized, as the pale hand in the mirror slowly, deliberately, with a chilling, agonizing slowness, began to pull the stall door shut from the inside, inch by excruciating inch. The metal creaking faintly in the mirror, a high-pitched, almost human-like sound that seemed to grate on his very soul, but no sound echoed in the real bathroom. The silence in reality was absolute, profound, unnerving. As the door in the reflection slowly closed, sealing the horror within, he saw more of the figure within, a dark, indistinct shape, tall and gaunt, receding into the mirrored darkness, its form unnaturally elongated, impossibly thin, a silhouette of pure dread. It wasn't human. Its movements were too fluid, too unnatural, too devoid of any discernible effort, like smoke or a shadow. And then, just before the door in the mirror clicked shut with a chilling, final snap, he saw it. Two enormous, black, empty eye sockets in a pale, featureless face, staring directly into the mirror, devoid of any warmth or life. Staring directly at him, through the reflection, a gaze that pierced through the glass and into his very being, holding him utterly captive, exposing his soul. The stall door in the mirror clicked shut, a soft, sickening sound in the mirrored world, a final punctuation mark to the terrifying vision. The reflection now showed a perfectly normal closed stall door, just like the others. Marcus, with a raw, desperate effort that felt like tearing his own soul, spun around, tearing his gaze from the mirror, and stared at the actual third stall. Its door was still slightly ajar, empty, normal, just as it had been, as if nothing had happened, as if his mind had conjured the entire horrifying sequence from thin air. Marcus didn't wait. He didn't try to investigate. He didn't try to find a rational explanation. He let out a raw, guttural scream that tore from his throat, a sound he didn't even recognize as his own, a primal shriek of terror, and sprinted out of the bathroom, tearing down the deserted hallway, his footsteps echoing wildly, crashing through the oppressive silence. He didn't dare to look back, not caring if anyone heard him, if his terror drew attention. He didn't stop running until he was safely outside the school building, bursting out into the cool evening air, collapsing onto the cool asphalt of the parking lot, gasping for breath, hyperventilating, his lungs burning. The cool evening air was a shocking, welcome contrast to the suffocating terror of the bathroom. He never found an explanation for what he saw, no logical reason, no scientific theory that could account for it. He never told anyone, knowing with absolute certainty that they wouldn't believe him, that they would dismiss him as crazy, as unstable. He still avoids mirrors, especially large ones in empty rooms, his gaze instinctively flicking away, a permanent, almost involuntary aversion. He wonders, constantly, obsessively, with a cold knot in his stomach that never truly dissipates. What was that reflection? A ghost? A dimensional anomaly? A brief, horrifying glimpse into another reality? A breach in the veil? And why did it choose to reveal itself only in the mirror, watching him from a reality just beyond his own, a terrifying parallel existence that now haunted his every waking moment? The questions haunt him, a chilling echo every time he catches a glimpse of his own reflection, wondering what else might be lurking in the glass, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself just to him, and him alone. The horrifying vision of an extra reflection, a silent, impossible presence that shatters the very fabric of reality, is deeply unsettling, leaving a permanent scar on the mind. But what if the terror isn't about what you see? What impossible visual confronts you but what you hear? What if an innocent, mundane sound in the profound solitude of a school bathroom slowly transforms, subtly but terrifyingly, into a horrifying, malevolent presence, a whispered threat from the darkness that relentlessly pursues you, growing louder, closer, more insistent, a sound that promises unspeakable things? Our final horrifying account takes us to the desolate, rarely used gymnasium bathroom in a large, sprawling high school. A cavernous, echoing space, usually filled with the sounds of athletic activity, of shouting and laughter, of squeaking shoes and bouncing balls. It was late, well past midnight, after a particularly intense Friday night basketball game, and the school was slowly emptying out, its vibrant energy dissipating into the vast, silent night. Liam, a responsible and dedicated student manager for the basketball team, a meticulous young man, was doing one last, precise sweep of the facility to ensure everything was locked up securely, a routine he knew well, a final duty before heading home. The school, once a hive of activity, now a maze of echoing corridors, filled only with the ghosts of shouts and laughter, now swallowed by a profound, almost oppressive silence, broken only by the distant mechanical hum of the building's ventilation system, a low, constant drone. He reached the gym bathroom, a large, dimly lit space with cold, bare concrete walls, and a row of industrial-looking stalls, their metal doors painted a dull grey, reflecting the sparse light. The air inside was cold and damp, carrying the faint, lingering scent of sweat and chlorine, a phantom reminder of the recent game. He flipped the main light switch, bathing the room in a harsh yellow glow that intensified the shadows in the corners, and did a quick check of the stalls, flushing toilets to ensure they worked and turning off faucets that had been left running. He was about to leave, his task completed, when he heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible sound. A whisper. It seemed to come from the walls themselves, a soft, dry rustle, like old brittle paper being slowly crinkled, or dried leaves rubbing against each other in a secret, unseen space. He frowned, his brow furrowing in confusion, thinking it was just the ancient building settling, its timbers creaking and groaning in the night, or the old pipes expanding and contracting. He dismissed it as a trick of the acoustics in the empty room, a figment of his tired imagination, and turned to leave, his hand already reaching for the light switch, eager to plunge the room back into darkness and escape. But then he heard it again, clearer this time, more distinct, a low, resonant whisper. Not a human voice, not exactly, not a language he recognized, no discernible words. It was more like a dry, raspy, elongated sigh, a guttural exhalation, as if air was being slowly, painfully forced through something very old and very dry, something that struggled to breathe, something ancient and withered. And it was undeniably coming from inside the third stall from the left, its door firmly closed, its metal surface gleaming dully under the harsh light, a solid, unyielding barrier. Liam froze, his entire body locking up in an instant, a wave of cold dread washing over him, chilling him to the bone. His heart began to pound, a frantic drumbeat against his ribs, loud in the profound silence. He was utterly alone in the bathroom. The entire school was empty. He called out, his voice shaking slightly, betraying his sudden, overwhelming unease. "Hello? Anyone in there?" No response. Just the oppressive silence of the bathroom, amplifying the sound of his own ragged breathing, his fear. He took a hesitant step towards the stall, his feet moving as if through thick mud, each step an act of immense effort. "Is someone there? I'm just locking up now." Then, a new sound, chilling and utterly impossible, emerged from the profound silence, a faint, rhythmic scratching. Coming from the same stall, a slow, deliberate scratch, like a long, sharp fingernail dragging across a rough, unyielding surface, a sound that grated on his nerves, making his teeth ache. The whisper returned, louder this time, more insistent, a long, drawn-out shh. It sounded like a warning, or a direct, chilling threat, a promise of something unspeakable, a malevolent presence communicating its intent. Liam's blood ran cold, turning to ice in his veins, a profound chill that permeated his entire body. He tried desperately to rationalize it. A rodent, perhaps, trapped in the walls, scuttling and scratching. But the sounds were too deliberate, too knowing. The whisper was too coherent, too human-like in its rhythm, despite its unearthly dry quality. He felt a chilling, malevolent presence emanating directly from the stall, an energy that pressed down on him, suffocating him, stealing the air from his lungs. The air seemed to grow thick, heavy with unspoken dread, a tangible weight in the room. Suddenly, with a soft, almost imperceptible click, the stall door slowly, agonizingly slowly, began to open from the inside. Inch by excruciating inch. The metal groaned faintly, a low, drawn-out whine. Liam stumbled back, his eyes wide with pure, unadulterated terror, a raw scream caught in his throat. He didn't wait to see what was behind it. He didn't want to know. He didn't want to glimpse the unspeakable horror that was about to reveal itself, to become manifest. He spun around, a blur of panic, and fled, sprinting out of the bathroom, tearing down the echoing corridor, his footsteps pounding like thunder in the silence, not daring to look back, not caring if he left the light on, if he left the door ajar, if he tripped and fell. He just needed to escape, to get out, to breathe again. He burst out of the school's back exit, slamming the heavy door behind him with a desperate force, gasping for breath, hyperventilating, his lungs burning with exertion. The cool night air was a welcome shock against his sweat-dampened face, a jolt of reality. He didn't stop running until he reached his car, parked some distance away, fumbling frantically with the keys, his hands shaking so violently he could barely get them into the ignition. He jammed the key in, started the engine, the roar a sudden comfort, locked the doors with a frantic click, and sped away, tires squealing, leaving the silent, haunted school behind in his rearview mirror. Liam never found an explanation for what happened that night. He never went into that gym bathroom again, not even to retrieve something he'd forgotten, the very thought making him nauseous. and he resigned from his student manager position soon after, unable to bear the thought of stepping foot in the school after hours. He still has nightmares about that dry, raspy whisper and the slow, deliberate scratch, the chilling sensation of a presence trapped yet reaching out to him from the darkness. He wonders constantly, with a cold knot in his stomach that never truly dissipates. What was in that stall? What was it whispering? What dark secrets did it hold within those old walls? And why did it want him to hear, to know, to bear witness to its horrifying existence? The questions haunt him, a chilling reminder that some sounds once heard can never be unheard, forever echoing in the quiet corners of his mind, and some threats linger long after you've escaped, forever emanating from the shadows of a deserted school, waiting patiently for the next unsuspecting soul. These stories are a chilling reminder that the most mundane, overlooked places, spaces we take for granted as safe and ordinary, can hide the most profound, soul-shattering horrors. The school bathroom, a place of routine and necessity, can become a terrifying stage for the unexplained, a brief, horrifying glimpse into a world beyond our comprehension. Whether it's the empty, locked stall with a sinister, distorted giggle and the sound of something dragging itself across the floor, the mirror reflecting an impossible, monstrous presence that stares back with empty eye sockets, or the whispering, scratching entity from within the very walls, a malevolent voice that slowly opens a stall door. These true accounts prove that sometimes the safest, most unassuming places hold the darkest, most terrifying secrets. Have you ever experienced anything truly terrifying in a school bathroom or any other seemingly ordinary public place? A strange sound? An unsettling presence? A glimpse of the impossible? A vision that defied all logic and left you questioning your sanity? Share your story in the comments below. We want to hear your encounters with the unsettling unknown, your brushes with the bizarre and the horrifying. If these tales sent shivers down your spine and made you rethink your next trip to the restroom, made you check behind every door, hit that like button, subscribe for more chilling true stories that push the boundaries of reality, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into the unsettling unknown. Until then, remember, some doors are better left unopened, especially in a silent school when you're all alone.